Makes my ear itchy now. Made my damn ear itchy. It's crammed in there all right, damn it. Note, get anti-itchy ear cream. Nope.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again.
Is Chad online?
I must conserve every bit of strength that I can.
You just unplugged it?
But we have a wonderful show for you tonight. I know you're going to enjoy it.
Got it! Whoa. Try again.
I think it's working now. Hang on.
That was good though.
Chad, can you hear me? Can you get it? Can you hear me, Chad? Chad. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Oh no, wait, I gotta...
Yeah.
It's because of this... Options... If this computer crashes... It's a real pistol. No, it's fine. Oh, USB.
Oh.
Hi, Chad. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
how you doing?
Good, you can hear me.
I can.
That's great. Okay, so I'm going to mute you until we're ready to go here. And you're going to hear, basically what you're going to hear is the live program. So you're going to hear Jason and his guests in the room, and you're going to hear them talking. You're not going to see anything. But when you hear them say, you know, say cue, now we're going to go to Chad, that's when you're going to be live, and we'll hear you in the studio. And, yeah, and just take it from there.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Yes. Well, just one sec. I'm just trying to get this back up and running now that we crashed after the crash.
We can't hear.
I can't hear him right now. Oh wait, I can now.
Sorry, we got it down. Give that again.
Okay, can you repeat the intro there? I'm just worried there's going to be some feedback here because Chad's voice is coming through loud and it might feedback on my mic.
Yeah, we're setting the levels. Don't worry about it now. We're just trying to get it figured out. Chad's on there now. Just setting the levels.
Okay, now I'm just going to cue him, right? And then it's going to switch him on to Skype?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
He's ready and watching and listening to you. And as soon as he hears your cue, he knows that he'll be on.
Fabulous. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, sorry. One second.
What am I doing wrong here?
Okay, should be back. Well, it just takes a minute.
Yeah.
Mental note, every crash sets you back about 10 minutes.
Sorry, the crash sent back, so he's got to reload a bunch of stuff.
Can you ask Dan to tweet out? I can't get off because I got my earpiece in. Can you ask him to tweet out, or David to tweet out, that there's a delay, but we're coming on? Dr. Hornby's still on.
Yep.
Because we're going to drop viewers. I can explain away the technical difficulties easy.
Once again.
I must conserve every bit of strength that I can. But we have a wonderful show for you tonight. I know you're going to enjoy it.
Welcome back to the live edition of Cannabis in Canada. It's usually going to be Cannabis Canada live at 6, but tonight it's 6:45. We apologize for the delay, but as with anything, it's technical difficulties getting the first show off the ground. That being said, it's Thursday, June 25th, and we're happy to say Dr. Hornby is in the house, happily in the back, being taken care of, as myself and Chad can open up the show, and we can start to talk about some of the stuff CNC's been doing, and start to gather a list of potential questions that we would want to have for Dr. Hornby from anybody that's watching, as well as Chad and myself are open to questions as we get going. I guess with that being said, we should just move straight forward and bring my co-host on, Mr. Chad Jacket. Hey Chad, what's up, brother?
Hey, doing great, man. Doing wonderful.
All right, that's excellent. So what's happening up in your neck of the woods there?
A lot of farming. a lot of taking care of plants and a lot of taking care of animals, and just trying to live off the land, man.
You're sporting that nice big beard, I see. That's awesome.
Yeah, I am. It's
Sweet.
getting a little out of hand.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the stuff we've been covering on Cannabis in Canada this week that people could go check out on our blog and on our website, and in some of our breaking stories. So maybe one of the first ones we can talk about was my open letter that I had written to Rona Ambrose. Did you have a chance to read that?
Yeah, I did. It was great. Rona is completely out of her mind, as we all know, as well as quite a few other politicians out there that continue to, preach this same message that cannabis is dangerous. We don't have the studies behind it. Well, why don't they do any studies? It's pretty hilarious.
Absolutely. I noticed that even in City Hall, which we're going to get into, but when we were at City Hall, others had actually taken shots at Rona herself, and moreover, more of them took shots at the federal government of Canada for their simple failure in providing access for medical patients, and moreover for British Columbians, those that live in Vancouver anyway at this point.
Sorry, what was that?
I was sort of just talking about what I seen at City Hall was what some of the city councillors were sort of talking about in relation to some of the dispensaries. Sorry, I was jumping ahead there. Now, what about the dispensary zoning map? What was your take on that for Vancouver, which was put on by Jade Maple?
Well, it was an excellent map that was put together by Jade Maple, just basically outlining, what these regulations really have in store for people, and what they really are trying to set forward, it looks like, is to limit the market again and really narrow it down to what it looked like to be about 21 different dispensaries out of the close to 100 that are already established, and possibly hundreds more that could be established. So so it just seems like it's limiting access again through the having different dispensaries having to be certain distances from one another, can't be close to a school, whatnot. We all know that alcohol and tobacco is sold close to schools, and I mean, they're very damaging. This is a plant that is helpful, extremely helpful, and we've found really no damage from this plant, and they're giving us all this grief saying it has to be so far away from schools and all this stuff. It seems quite ridiculous to me. They're just trying to limit people's access to this extremely beneficial plant that can do so much for so many people, and as much as it's kind of a good thing that they're going forward, and people are starting to see that it's viable through these regulation schemes. It's a viable product. I see on the other hand them trying to form a monopoly for themselves and trying to basically wean out the people that really care about it and really care about the people, I think.
Yeah, no, that's true. One of the things I also note, and I say this to our viewers and people who are watching now, there's a reality that in this city proposal, the Supreme Court of Canada did not regulate what an extract is. They did not say you can't have edibles. The Supreme Court of Canada simply said that myself as a medical patient and Chad himself as a medical patient have a legal right to do extracts. That's what the Constitution of Canada and the Supreme Court of Canada said. There is no legislation governing extracts, and I feel that the city has overstepped their bounds just a little bit in saying that they're going to block edibles and turn around and allow any sort of illegal supply. And again, with that strike of the word compliance, when a certain number of clubs get in, I fear, you're right, Chad, my brother, I seriously fear that in time a strike of compliance will be, you need to sell the legal supply of cannabis, which is why we need to open up dispensaries across the country and control them by the people, not allow the monopoly to move in.
Absolutely, and I see them trying to bring in sort of these food guidelines, sort of, to shut down people on the other end of it and say, well, you don't have a safe kitchen, maybe, is what they'll try to bring in or whatever. I mean, people can establish safe kitchens. These can all be accomplished. I don't know where they're going with this whole edible thing. It's really ridiculous that, people are going to have to take their flower home, then make their extracts, then make their edibles themselves. I mean, that's a great thing for people to do if they want to do that. But if somebody doesn't have the time to do that, I mean, that's going to be getting in their way a little bit of just having a good day and being able to go to work or do whatever they need to do. Um, yeah, I mean, eating cannabis is really the best way to take it in, as far as I've seen, and to just limit people, to smoking it, or having to take the extract home and making it. It's just, again, limiting access to those that are just walking down the street, and hey, I'm feeling a little pain and not feeling so good. I'm gonna walk in and grab a muffin and head back to work. I mean, that seems like it should be a pretty viable thing.
Well, they sanction illegal cannabis, and then they say go ahead and take tinctures. And I would remind everybody out there that alcohol is in your fridge, and pills are in the cupboard, oxycodone's in the cupboard, and kids get hooked on drugs. Those are entry drugs. Cannabis is the least of your worries, and it can also be handled the same way. A locked refrigerator containment. I know there's been a lot of complaints at City Hall, and that's why they're looking at doing this. I still don't necessarily agree with it because it does not conform to the Constitution. I believe the city has stepped over their bounds. Aside from that, big ups to the city for saying, hey, we want to do this, but I caught Gregor when he said, in the long run, we're going to tax and regulate. You don't tax and regulate a business. You do not. You said tax and regulate the supply. How do you tax and regulate the illegal supply? Therefore, again, I fear the monopoly is coming in for our dispensaries in the long term. LP weed is coming to BC.
And again, taxing people on their health and and their food is just ridiculous to me. I mean, this is products that people need for life, to live. And why are we taxing people just to live?
Well, it tells you, what's going on in Canada. I tell people there's a war for supply and distribution. Think about how Cannabis Canada got the leak 24 hours before we got the leak. So we got the leak about what was going on at City Council. We told people that it was going to go from 35,000 down to 1,000 the night before City Council even voted. We told you it was coming. We even named 4 dispensaries. City Council didn't name them, but we know that there's supposed to be 19 others that have been pre-selected that fit certain criteria, such as being nonprofit and having a compassionate model or having the ability to institute one. So there's certainly a lot that still remains. Like, for instance, the monopoly, the lottery is gone. So you take the lottery away and you say, okay, and so is the grandfathering. So now if you want in, then you got 60 days. And it's now allowing any entrepreneur with big money to come in. And again, I point to St. Catharines. I point to the clinic that's been operating for almost a year now. That we broke here on CinC. That was the first ground dispensing. That's what they want in every province. Again, how do you regulate dispensaries in Calgary when there are none?
Yeah, exactly.
I go on these tirades, bro. Sorry, but I'm fired up after all the stuff I've seen, because I see the good, bad, and the ugly, and I truly want to believe that the city of Vancouver is taking a stand against the federal government and is not part of this bigger game of monopoly that's going on in Canada for the billion-dollar crop.
Absolutely, man. There's a lot of money involved in this product, and realistically, they're trying to take it away from the people. It's really been the people that have been pushing forward and have been running this whole industry, if you will. It hasn't really been this controlled monopoly via the powers that shouldn't be. So now what we're seeing is they're moving in on it, because the people are getting their power back. They're using this plant and realizing that, well, we don't need so much regulation. We don't need regulation and all this control on this plant. And why do we need so much control and regulation on all these other plants that are even more, not even more benign? I mean, I don't know if anything is, but we have a lot of systems and control, bureaucracy around our food supply, our medicines, all kinds of different things, and I think people are using this opportunity to realize that they can become more self-sufficient in all angles of life, not just this medicine. Maybe there's other medicines that they want to produce themselves. to create for themselves, and this is opening that this is that little spark to make them realize that, well, hey, maybe that's something I can do, and maybe I don't need to be, you know, a slave to these pharmaceutical industries, and I can just go and make whatever product myself, you know.
Absolutely, and we're, you know, Allard has protected our gardens and protected genetics, and I know we're going to get a chance to talk to Dr. Hornby a little bit about Allard. He's not much on politics, but he is up to speed on Allard and what that exactly means, because of course he loves his garden, and what kind of precedents that will set for legalization in Canada. You want precedent-setting legalization, policy-changing facts? Look at R versus Smith, and look at Allard for extracts and gardens. Without gardens, you got no extracts. They go
right.
together hand in hand. They're both Section 7 and Section 1 constitutional challenge. That's
Absolutely,
huge.
and you kind of have to look at that too. You know that they've pushed through the extract thing before the gardens are secured. So that's something that should make people a little bit nervous as to, you know, are they gonna try to just take the gardens away and say, well, the extracts only have to come from this supply, because I mean otherwise, you know, we could have had a ruling a lot sooner to protect those gardens, you know.
No, and I believe that. And as you know, we have fought, and now the coalition, you know, the Cannabis Rights Coalition, formerly the MMAR Coalition Against Repeal, since 2012, we raised $250,000. We fought, clawed, we raised the National Army, and we restrained the federal government of Canada with an injunction. We put them on trial. We proved no fire, mold, or organized crime, justifying the right to autonomy. And then also, it's a Section 7, which is the right to liberty, and then Section 1, reasonable limits on that liberty, that we're arguing. The Supreme Court of Canada was a test case, and they were Section 7, Section 1 in R versus Smith. So though I'm not an attorney, I can tell you now that it sets precedents that the Constitution or the Supreme Court of Canada said Section 1 was a test case that stood. Which means if we're going to face persecution in Allard, if patients are going to face persecution, then it's been argued that definitely then our liberty is infringed. Therefore, we move to Section 1. We meet the test for liberty, and we move to Section 1, which is reasonable limits. And we believe the government's been arbitrary since 2001 in the MMAR, you know, to the MMPR, the Marijuana for Medical Purposes regulations. The first ones being the Medical Marijuana Access regulations. All of them saying medical, while Rona, you scream about no damn medical value. You know, then why the hell did the government mislead Canada and talk about medical value? And then bring in a monopoly. You were okay with the monopoly. You were perfectly okay with the monopoly coming in and suggesting that cannabis had medical value for them to sell it, just not for us to grow it.
That's right. So, you know, Jay, a question that keeps arising with me is, what do you say to these people in these conservative provinces that, you know, kind of don't understand the whole political aspects of what's going on here, and just want to have legal cannabis, and the government is telling them the only place you can get that is through these LPs. Now, they don't want us necessarily be supplied by them, but they're very fearful that they'll be arrested or something from other sources. Now, what are your sources saying about all the supply of all the different dispensaries for medical patients once they actually have that product in their hand?
I'm glad you asked that, because a shout out to all the club owners who I've been in talks with. I'm not going to get into names, and who have reached out to me, standing clubs, new clubs, but all you guys got nonprofit status, and you know where you stand here. And you know, I look forward to talking more about that. One thing I can say now is if they're going to start popping up regulations saying it's okay for dispensaries in Calgary and everywhere else, then I believe we the people need to push back. And my answer, bro, here in BC, we the people, once again, just like in Allard, the patients controlled the trial. We controlled the constitutional right to liberty. Here, I believe BC and the province, just like the ethical issue to access, and there's also an economic issue to this problem that we're facing. My fear is that the city may just follow suit, or the RCMP or somebody will move in and be forced to follow suit with the MMPR's legal distribution supply and just put a clinic or a doctor inside these compassion clubs, and then it's a legal dispensing clinic for an LP. It's just a loophole. Or maybe they'll make a strike of the pen under compliance and say, hey, now you can sell storefront as long as you got a depot front and the right security. It might tie into the proposal security broad stroke. Just a little forward thinking, and again, speculation on my part, but I'm going to call it here on Cannabis in Canada. I know that we got to go to break here because we got Dr. Paul Hornby coming on, Chad. Now I want to talk a bit about the great Great Canadian Glass Gathering at Redbeard's. Patrick, sorry brother, but I always have trouble getting that long spew out. But we're going to be there again this year. We're going to see you Friday night, and we're looking forward to that. Going out, checking out the Beard Bros, and yeah, we're going to be up around your neck of the woods. So, what's your take on that, Chad? And we're going to be, of course, attending this together. So. It's going to be
I'm
interesting.
really excited to have everybody up here. I can't wait to go to the glass gathering and see how it goes down this year. It's a very exciting event. Lots of amazing artists there. I plan on trying to find a nice piece for myself to pick up. So we'll see how it goes. I'm excited, man. I'm really excited.
Well, the one thing that we're going to be, when we go to commercial, and I cue it up here, we're actually going to play the Redbeard footage from last year when we attended 2014, which kind of gives a good kind of broad brushstroke of what it looks like. So I'm always excited because I go up there, your neck of the woods so peaceful. I'm stuck in the concrete jungle. People don't understand. I go from my condo to work. It's like 4 blocks, and it's like that's it. That's all I do. And it's inside the city, so it's really peaceful to be able to get out, and the people are so nice when you go up to these events, and it's really the classic if you have a hippie crowd where you just get to really, everybody's unique and everybody's just open-minded and like-minded when it comes to cannabis and liberty, and I respect that. So especially the farmers' perspective. And you've been fighting a lot for that too, with Liberty Farms and the growers and stuff like that, and trying to unite stuff and get people together. Maybe how's that going for you right now before we cut to break?
Absolutely, man. It's going great. We need a lot more people to jump out of the woodwork there and kind of come out of the shadows and jump on the growers. The more we have, the stronger we are. The more voices we have to push forward for a free and fair market, the more growers that we have out there to say, hey, listen, we are the market. We are the people that have been supplying these sick people for so many years. Just because you came out and you decided to steal the market because we got the message out there so loud and clear that it's a viable and a very useful product, just because we got that message out there doesn't mean that you guys now get to steal the industry that we all fought so hard to create, And so I really think everybody's gotta just lose the fear these days and really just do what's right, because we know that it's this industry is best in our communities. It serves the communities best that are out there, that are the people that are in your community, that are your neighbors and everybody around you. If they're involved in this industry, well, then you're going to get the best product available because they care about the people around them. I'd rather buy a product from my neighbor than some guy in Ottawa that I don't even know who it is. So that's just the bottom line. It comes down to that with really every aspect of life. If I know the person I'm buying something from, if I see their face and I can shake their hand, I feel a lot better about that product I'm buying than some faceless, Yahoo that's selling stuff on the stock market.
And absolutely, like I've always argued, there's no toxicity less than caffeine, when it comes to toxicity. And with caffeine, there's a lethal death or a lethal death dose, which there isn't with cannabis. And then when it comes to addiction, well, we're going to be talking with Dr. Hornby about addiction in the article I've written on phytocannabinoids and addiction and the controversial findings of some of the different information there. And of course, lots from Mr. Dr. Hornby, and continuing on to sorry, I'm just trying to look at my control room here so I know when I can cut the break. So we're going to cut off the break here, but this is going to be some of Redbeard's glass gathering and some additional stuff here that we've been doing with CinC. When we come back, we'll have Dr. Hornby in, and I've got lots of questions for him, and I'm sure Chad does too. Thanks to MMJ, without MMJ Dispensary, without Kruna Medicinals, without various clients that we have, without Green Planet Nutrients, we would not be able to bring shows like this to you. So thanks to them, and thanks to our continued supporters. And if there's anybody online, we did say we'd be taking questions. We just wanted to get through this segment, and the next hour we're going to let the show run. If you're online, let your friends know. If they want to ask the doctor questions, Dr. Hornby goes back 30 years in this culture. 30 years of studying cannabis and cannabinoids. So we'll see you in the next part right after break. All right, welcome back. It's Jason Wilcox. Now I'm here with Redbeard himself, the facilitator of the show, the Glass Gathering. This is what, the 6th year?
7th year, actually. 7th. Yeah.
7 years.
Well, we might have lost count in the beginning years, but no, we're pretty sure it's 7. Yeah, a few years ago we actually tried to add them up, and this is what we came up with. So we're going with 7.
Awesome turnout. I mean, this is my first year for myself and in our crew. We wanted to definitely cover it, and wow, lots going on. A lot of glass blowers, clearly, and a lot that we have to cover. And what a peaceful crowd, man. I'm just loving the silence.
Yeah, thanks, man. Not quite silent. We've got some music here, live music this year, but it is a peaceful crowd. It's really a grassroots event. Everyone here is really chill. Look, we've got $20,000 worth of glass just here for everyone to view, with no security, just kind of honor system. We also have no money being accepted at the gate. Everyone's welcomed in to find their place to stay. They need a pass to leave the property.
I like that. I like that.
Really, we're on an honor system, and so they're it's up to you to find your ticket, and here I am to do that. And yeah, it's kind of been great. Everyone's been really wonderful. It's a different type of a vibe. It's a different type of a party.
Just wanted to show this really cool ticket because it actually has my picture, and I had to sign, and I put grower Jason Wilcox.
There you go. Yeah, it's also our liability waiver so that the owner of the property can't get sued, and you can't get sued. And this also, it's a joint liability waiver.
Awesome. There you go. We got to figure more of those out for the coalition things because I'm just out with Fortune Sound for the concert. So July 20th.
Speak to my attorney, who's also my chef. He's down at the kitchen. Check out the organic food we've got down the hill. You should bring that subject up. He's very interesting to talk to.
Excellent.
Yeah, food this year is all organic and local, as is the glass. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Red. We'll probably catch up with you later at another tent or whatever. But
definitely, yeah. Come check out the action tonight. We got another band happening tonight, and we've got 37 at last count torches set up. I think there's at least 3 more people coming, so we'll be up over 40 for sure. So we'll get some action shots tonight. Maybe I'll take you for a little tour.
Definitely, I appreciate it, brother. Thanks again.
Cool. Yeah, man.
Peace. Good show.
Thanks. Keep growing.
All right. Peace. We'll see you in the next segue. All right, welcome back. Okay, I'm sitting here now with Chris with Kahuna Glass. Wow, Chris hooked me up with a shirt. We're going to be checking that out a little bit later, and I'll definitely promote it in future videos. Now, Chris, tell me a bit about what you're doing here at the Great Glass Gathering.
Just hanging out with everybody. Hopefully, I've been teaching some couple people to do little mushroom pendants and stuff like that, but I'll probably make another little scallion, kind of alien fish-like pieces. I also make a lot of sharks, turtles, and things like that. I learned how to do that in Hawaii, so yeah, I'll be doing some sharks and turtles and stuff like that today for sure.
Right on. Like, I don't know a lot about glass, so do you do the big fancy 3-chamber things in that?
Not so much like that. I do mostly sculpting, not so much technical work and perks and stuff like that. I do a little bit of interesting things like that. Like this piece right here has a turbine perk. It's kind of tilted to one side, so it makes a whirlpool inside the chamber. But yeah, mostly sculpture work is what I do.
That is really amazing work, and yeah, we'll definitely see if we can get some footage of you when you got your torch going a little bit later. But Chris, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, man.
And we'll catch you next time. Is there any last shout out, your website?
KahunaGlassArt.com.
Okay.
Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff too.
Sweet. Right on, brother. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of the show here. We'll see you in the next segue. Cheers. All right, welcome back. We're here at the Great Glass Gathering, and as you can see, there is all kinds of glass hanging. So I'm standing here with Big Jeff himself, kicking it here live. Big Jeff from Saskatchewan runs the Saskatchewan Cup every single year. Jeff, tell me about what's happening this year. What's going on?
So it's our 4th annual Prairie Medicinal Harvest Cup. So it's last weekend in September this year. We're trying to brand it on the first weekend in October, but we couldn't get those dates for our event center this year, so we compromised and pushed it back. It's supposed to be October, first weekend in October every year. It's going to be for our 5th year, so just for people to keep that in mind. But this year's dates are September 26th, 27th, 28th in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And so tickets are available online. SasberryCup.ca is our website, so you can buy tickets online or at my retail shop in Saskatoon. And those are the only places doing tickets this year. Or if you have any questions or want to enter or get a booth space and come be part of the trade show, you can email us at sasberrycup@gmail.com. So As far as stuff that's happening at the events, everything. Glass blowing demonstrations, hash and sifting demonstrations. We're doing giveaways, 50-50 draws. There's a dab bar. There's award ceremonies. There's judging. There's a vape lounge. There's 30-foot vapor bag. There's something that we do at our cup that's different than any other event I've ever been to. All your non-alcoholic beverages are covered in your ticket price. So if you are thirsty and got the pasties, you just go to the bar and get a pop or a juice or a water or a coffee. It's all paid for in your ticket price.
That's awesome. I think there's a good possibility I'm going to try and make it down this year. I know I didn't get a chance to make it last year, but I think I'm going to get a chance to be there this year and potentially bring it to our viewers. Where can they find, you mentioned the website. Is there another website you want to give a shout out to? You own your own store.
Yeah, if you wanted to hit us up, and we're specifically in Saskatoon or area, you can check out skunkfunk.ca. So Skunk Funk's my head shop in Saskatoon, so that's our hub for all of this stuff, and so our Sasbury Cup, and you can reach us at all of those.
Awesome. So, just in closing, now this, I don't know how many years you've come to the Glass Gathering, but this is my first.
5th year.
Your 5th year. Well, this is my first because I've been able to come up and show my support to Redbeard. I really want to do. He's been such a strong supporter of the coalition. I thought, hey, let's go up and support Redbeard and cover his event. So, tell me a bit about what's different from this year from 5 years ago.
Oh, wow, what's different? There's like probably triple the people here. You know, and then live bands. There was no live bands. Like, that's unbelievable to see live music. What else is going on? Whole new kitchen down there, so they're serving up different organic foods. So that's a big part of this year.
I got into the infused cookies. They're messing with my. I'm a little wobbly.
There's a ton of edibles. There's a ton of sponsors. Skunk Funk sponsored all the oxygen. So all the glass blowers are blowing on my dime this weekend. So we did that. We're all part of this community, and it just means so much for us to give back and be part of it and be able to come out to these events. So
I love it, brother, every time when we come across paths, because it goes to show from East Coast to West Coast and down in the center that this culture exists and that we're not going anywhere, and we love to come together like this. And what a peaceful place to have this, eh?
Oh, it's amazing, and that's a big up to Mike Milner. That's whose property this is. And Mike's a personal friend of mine. He's been hosting this party now for 7 years. Like, for him to step up and give his property up for all these people to hang out and camp and eat and get wasted and smoke themselves silly. Like, what an amazing community we have, and what a beautiful place. If you guys got some scenery shots around this bitch. So wake up every morning in the mountains. It's a pretty special thing when you're from the prairies. A little bit flat there.
Absolutely, I had a great drive up here for sure, and we're definitely going to be bringing some still shots. So yeah, thanks a lot again for coming on the show, Jeff, and we hope to see you at the Cup.
Right on, brother. It's going to be a party.
Yeah, September 7th is my birthday, so I very much could be there. All right, peace. All right, welcome back. Here we are now. It is the evening. We're kicking it here at the Canadian Glass Gathering. And again, great Canadian, thank you, Opus. Great Canadian Glass Gathering. Now, last time Opus and I were together was in Toronto at the Champs event. Opus, you're all the way out here on the West Coast. You're home, brother. Much love. Good to have you back on the West Coast. Culture, this is a 7th event, as you said. Tell us a bit about it, and yeah, and a little bit about what you're doing here. It's a long ways to go.
Well, yeah, we came out, Tracy and I came out with Pod TV and Vapor Central. The good ones are here. Dana Larson, was good enough to put up some boys here from, billet some of us guys for coming out. I'm so confused. East Coast, West Coast. It seems like we're just everywhere. We've been in Jamaica. I've been down in Costa Rica representing. I've talked to people down there unintentionally. Now Vancouver, back here. Where am I from? Vancouver or Toronto? I don't even know anymore. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it is. The Champs Expo, you mentioned that. I was in Montreal. I was hanging out with our good friend John Vargado. So he spent some time touring me around Montreal, and I got to meet some great people there doing good work, again, in this cannabis industry. I'm disappointed to see the green rush and the money and that's going on. It's how we've been at this for decades. Your coalition exists just to help sick people like myself and others, ill and suffering Canadians, continue to be able to grow and access medicine like this. It's so important and easy that anybody can grow, and instead of this ridiculous green rush, as they're calling it, where you have security commissions warning people about penny stocks. You know, it's either all of a sudden they're looking at marijuana as this big cash crop, and it's like, wait a minute, guys. The only reason it was ever a cash crop was because you prohibited it. It was prohibited. The same way guns are still a cash crop because they're prohibited, or at least, you know, to some people, so that makes them valuable. It says when anyone can have the shit, it's no longer valuable. So, like, nobody really needs it if it's not valuable. Like, why am I carrying this extra weight around? Guns are heavy. It's steel. You know? So, like, growing pot, anyways, back to something else. Am I fucking high?
We are very fucking high, very medicated. I mean, this is the culture, brother. I mean, the peaceful culture up here in the mountains. I haven't been up in the mountains for a while, but I mean...
We're smoking weed. We're out in the mountains. We're sharing love. You know, this great plan of ours that brings us all together.
And hats off to Redbeard Glass for throwing down another great party.
Live music. Guys pulling molten glass out of a crucible. Live shows. Live doobies. Yeah, this doesn't get any better than this.
All right, Opus. Well, thanks again for coming on the show as always, brother. We are going to see you again on the East Coast, of course, or on the West Coast, because if we're
coast to coast.
Coast to coast. Thanks for coming on the show again, Opus, and we'll see you on the East Coast.
Yeah, man.
Cheers. Peace out. Hey, welcome back, and here we are now. We're going to be going over to Dr. Hornby, and of course I want to first patch in my co-host Chad and welcome him back to the show. And once again, give a shout out and let everybody know, hey, let your friends know if you want to ask Dr. Hornby any questions, and you want to give us any complex questions, please just put them in to the chat. And if you just want any general questions for any three of us on the show, that's perfectly okay as well. So, you know, as we do that, I'm just going to wait for Chad to get patched in here before we actually cue into the doctor here. But one of the other things I would say, once again, a big shout out to MMJ Dispensary as well as Corona Medicinals for, again, their support, and Green Planet for their continued support of Cannabis in Canada and our ability to bring you shows like this that are educational, awareness, factual, and where the controversy always meets the concrete. You know, and technology always seems to mess with you when you're on a live show. So, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Dr. Hornby and let the text patch in my co-host here. So, Dr. Hornby, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be
Now, Paul, you and I go back a decade here. You're an amazing mentor, educator. I can't say enough about what I think of you in your work. From the days of when you had to run away from pharmacology, and I think you still are a pharmacopoeia or a big pharma if you have it. You still are quite nervous. I remember you didn't want to leave work sometimes. You were so nervous. So yeah, let's you know, what I want to do is I want to take people back, because I did some research on you and I was amazed to learn, you know, like you went to Cambridge, and you know, then you went off to India, and it was in India you worked on cancer. And when you worked on cancer, I mean, this was amazing stuff. You came back to Canada, and I believe you started studying cannabis and cannabinoids at that point, and started Hedron in 1988. Is that correct?
1998, I believe. Hedron was founded in 1998.
Was it 98?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, it was 1998. So Hedron.
And I
started...
came into Hedron with a license to analyze hemp, industrial hemp.
And you've got a certification as a biochemist. Just so people understand, when we say Dr. Paul Hornby, he's a certified biochemist, as well as there are additional certifications that I'm missing.
I have a bachelor's degree in zoology, a master's degree in biochemistry, and a doctorate degree in human pathology. I worked with analytical instruments for the past 30 years, where we can identify and quantify compounds. So that's what I've been doing with cannabis for many years now.
Yeah, so you started in cancer. Now, you noticed natural herbs when you were in India. Now, this is why I've read your sort of bio. So, for our audience, understand that you studied the natural herbs, started seeing it with cancer. You've seen a lot of people healthy using natural herbs. You came back to Canada, did your studies. I believe you worked, I can't remember where it was here. you're an expert in synthetic medicine and have a doctorate in human pathology. So this is kind of some of the stuff I want our audience to know about the doctor before us. So Hedron starting in 1998. When would you say you started? Chad, welcome back to the show, brother. Sorry, I just noticed you're patched in here too. When did you start with cannabis and cannabinoids? And then Chad can field the next question after that for yourself, research.
16 years ago.
16 years?
Yeah, so right after I started my R&D company, Hedron, like I say, I had a license from an earlier contract lab that I worked in for 9 years previous to that, where I started the herbal quality control unit of that lab. And then during my time with that lab, I applied for a license to analyze industrial hemp. I was granted. It was granted to myself as a person rather than the lab, so I took it with me when I started Hedron. And at one time on a small lab on Pandora Street, I had a wall full of cannabis flowers stacked in shelves that had come from farms across Canada, hemp farmers. And I remember a guy cleaning the windows. He tapped on it and I opened it and he said, "Is that what I think it is?" And I said, "Yes, but it's not." The smoke light explained that it was hemp its own.
But wait, that's correct. You supplied the British Columbia Cabbage Club Society for a while too, didn't you? Did you not get arrested or something for supplying the British Columbia Cabbage Club Society or work with them?
That was, yes, I had a...
Sorry, Chad.
I had a small farm in Richmond, and we had a greenhouse where we had teamed up with Hillary Black to grow 7 strains from Holland under contract with the club, and we got busted doing that. They collected 2,000 plants, but didn't take any equipment. They took our seed and plants, and that was tremendously traumatic for the whole team. Number of years in court after that, I'm convicted and am halfway through a pardon as we speak. It's more than 10 years ago. So.
Wow.
So would you say that in your cannabis growing career, the most dangerous part of it so far would have been the state?
He was asking, is the most dangerous part so far been the state or pharmacopoeia or sorry, big pharma? I'm not sure what to call them exactly. The machine.
I only have a criminal record for cannabis-related offenses. I consider that part of the duty, if you like, or the mission, And I have a conviction for it, but in a way I'm kind of proud of it. It's part of the fight.
Absolutely. So would you say then that the most dangerous part of growing cannabis is actually the government or the state?
I would agree, yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
That's where the dangers, it seems, comes in.
I mean,
those are the guys with the guns that seem to point them at you for.
I fear the pharmaceutical industry, right? Always.
Do we have any questions at all from the audience? There's a lot of stuff now. So that was the British Columbia Cabbage Club Society work. Now you did some peer-reviewed journals at the Green Cross Society, and one of them was on John Barrowfellow actually for chronic pain, and he's a personal friend of mine. So it was, we kind of go back that far. So maybe tell us a bit about some of the work you did there, and maybe any other peer-reviewed journals you've done in relation to Cannabis Sense, because there's just so much. We could both agree there's so much unexplored. That they're very almost right in saying that they don't know enough about it, but they're naive in saying it's not medical. In my own opinion, your shot.
I have attempted to do what I call pilot clinical trials. That's what the medical profession will ultimately believe in any medicine, as they believe clinical trials done on groups of people. what I did at the Green Cross is I had my lab in a ground floor level of their dispensary for 5 years, witnessed roughly 40,000, I don't know how many people using cannabis therapeutically, and I made a number of observations time and time again. In that experience, I ran into John Burfellow, who most of the people in the culture locally know, a tremendous advocate for seriously injured workers. And John was really a living dead person when I met him. He wasn't doing well, not in mood or pain management or any way. And over the years I've known him, I've seen him recover, being able to manage his pain. I've seen him go through 2 surgeries and use only cannabis for post-operative pain. John is a tremendous voice for cannabis. I highly respect him. He's courageous and has done a lot.
Absolutely, Johnny B. That one's out to you. John Bearfellow, everybody, check him out. Look at him. Now, where can they find his peer-reviewed journal if somebody wanted to look it up?
It's in the cases journal because it's a case study. Chronic pain management with standardized cannabis. If you Google that, you'll probably hit the paper. It's available on the internet.
Beautiful.
And the other one we did was on a woman with MS, multiple sclerosis, that we treated for a year, and we did her pain charts and tracked her over that time and saw a significant change in her quality of life as well. So those were 2 studies that I published early on, which was, at that time, it was kind of difficult to get things published on cannabis medicine, natural product cannabis medicine. In both papers we were talking about standardized natural, which is just essentially heated up bud and put into a capsule. And really that was my inside statement that I've always been making, that natural product cannabis is an extremely valuable medicine. We must research the natural medicine. Yeah, I'm in biological sciences, and I'm always looking at the medical scientific research. I remember the day they discovered the receptor. I was in a contract lab in Burnaby, and I remember thinking, wow, there's actually a receptor. And then I witnessed over the years an absolute massive explosion in the amount of research happening on what we call the endocannabinoid system, which in my mind is one of the biggest medical finds of the last century, and will be realized in one day, and Raphael Mershulam will be granted a Nobel Prize for his work.
Now, hold on, can we really say that it's of the century, when from the 1800s to 1942, it was actually in pharmacopoeia in the U.S. and could be prescribed by a doctor and sometimes over the counter for free, as a medicine. It was then banned, so really I'd say it's the second time we're looking at it as medicine in this country, which is huge. I agree. It's just they may not have known about endocannabinoids back then, but they certainly knew that there was enough medical value to cannabis to put it into pharmacopoeia. And then ban it for whatever reason and put it in with opiates. And of course, as we know, there's no addiction, there's no toxicity, and there's no lethal death rate or death dose for cannabis.
All illegal drugs have only been illegal since the pharmaceutical industry has been around. There's been many people doing time because of the existence of the pharmaceutical industry and illegal drugs. All of those drugs, for example, morphine, the psychedelics, cannabis, pretty much, if utilized, would cover all the bases of illness, really. I mean, you can use morphine for pain. The psychedelics are being shown to treat many psychiatric diseases, schizophrenia, addiction, and so on. And cannabis is being shown to treat cancer. But these are all natural medicines, natural plant products that are, in my mind, the true medicine that we should be researching and studying, but they're illegal. And in my simple mind, that's because the pharmaceutical doesn't want the competition from something they can't patent and own.
They hold patents. Do they not? Like I mean, the U.S., I mean, the federal governments, they hold patents on certain strains. GW Pharmaceuticals certainly owns patents on certain strains for Sativex and others. You know, I'm just wondering when Monsanto
I hold a patent on Haley's Comet strain.
Oh yeah, that's right, you do. You
I have a
Haley's.
patent app on it. I don't have a patent on it. I patent app it, meaning I have a patent pending number, which I should explain myself. I've done this 4 times with various cannabis concepts, if you like. I patented an idea just to get my foot in the door on it, to say I'm first in line on this idea, if by any chance I ever want to take it to a full patent. But I don't really. I just want to make it known that I do have that opportunity if I want. But mostly I don't want anybody telling me that I can't use it. This is my reason for securing intellectual property.
I'm just going to bug the control. Can I ask in the control room if you guys can kill the air conditioner there? It's just a lot of noise. Thanks, guys. Do we have any questions at all from the audience? I'm trying to hear the question, but I can't hear it. One sec. There we go. What do you know about CBC and why is it not studied as much as CBD? And now this is a very good question. Just like CBG, but let's talk about CBC first.
Yeah, cannabichromene. Yeah. Actually, I saw a chromatogram today with 39 milligrams per gram of CBC in a bud sample. I thought, my God, that's high. I rarely see that. It's not an abundant cannabinoid. It's in certain strains. I can't give you strain names that I see it in. It pops up from time to time. But it's definitely not an abundant cannabinoid. But it could be selectively bred. And I believe it has application in depression. It binds various receptors. It's receptor active, I believe, CBC. So, like I say, it would have to be selectively bred from any particular strain.
All right, I'm going to field this next one over here to Chad. We got to get Chad in here because I know he's been studying. He's eager on this too. He's been, digging into this stuff. Chad, fire away.
Sure. So Paul, what would you say, if any? I mean, I'm sure it's hard to kind of decipher which one would be the most important. But which would be the most important cannabinoid of all of them, in your opinion?
I've said it many times for a long time now that I believe that cannabidiol holds a greater medical future than THC. I say that for a number of reasons. One is its receptor activity. It doesn't bind CB1 or CB2, but it binds the 5-hydroxytryptamine or serotonin receptor, explaining its antidepressant and anti-anxiety qualities. To harp a little more on the value of CBD, in my work with it directly with a number of people with MMAR licenses and doctors' permission using cannabis, that cannabidiol is a very, very useful anti-anxiety compound. It kicks the anxiety out of any day for 46 medium dosages, 30 milligrams. And anxiety, if you look at psychiatric illness, anxiety is kind of like inflammation and physiological illness. It's always there. Anxiety is a component of ADHD, of depression. It's a component of psychosis, schizophrenia. Soothing anxiety is helping a lot for psychiatric illness, and I believe that's what cannabidiol, its greatest use will be for, not only for humans but for dogs. I don't know about cats.
That's an awesome answer. Actually, I'm gonna. We got a question from the audience here, but I want to get into that after, because I did do an article recently on phytocannabinoids and the anti-addiction versus the addiction properties. We'll get into that. But the question from the audience is really, what is your newest finds in your cannabis research, like 2015?
I am about to present 2 papers at the IACM conference in September in Italy. One I call the 3-way split, which is about, it's really hard to pound this concept into growers, but I'll go over that in a minute. One is what I call the 3-way split, which is about the ratio of THC to CBD in any strain. And the other is work we've been doing in Europe with children with epilepsy and giving them a high cannabidiol containing strain. And we've actually have 10 children where their seizures have either been flatlined completely and gone away or have been significantly reduced. As they continue, interestingly enough, to use their pharma meds, blanketing over that. And we're going to publish that data with the head neurologist at Ljubljana Hospital on the team. He's part of our work. We've been doing that. So we make significant changes with kids with epilepsy. And funny, it's kids. I can't explain it. That's what I get. The doctor's a pediatrician and he's working mostly with kids, but we don't see it even here. The older, I guess they're already treated or seizures are somehow managed, but it's the young kids that are taking different pharmaceutical drugs trying to control their seizures. We give them cannabidiol orally, and 80% of the time, this is also seen by GW Pharmaceuticals in a retroactive study, 80% of the time the seizures go away completely. This is significant. I can't tell you how important this kind of work, to research it more, it must be done. And those moms of the kids with epilepsy, they have a huge, huge voice in the advocacy for medical marijuana. They're heard by the politicians.
You know what, my co-host has lots. So him and I went to Ottawa and we covered Baby Aiden. And for those of you who check out Baby Aiden on Facebook, check out what's going on there. It was a horrible case where the father was exploring cannabis because his baby suffered from seizures. Chad, fill him in on some of the stuff we covered, and that was very emotional for both of us, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Young Marco there, he's a young father that had his baby abruptly taken away from him by the state, simply because he mentioned that he wanted to try other options and brought up the word cannabis. And it was 2 days that it took for the state to move in on him after mentioning that, just in the hospital, to come and just take his little baby away from him. I'm not 100% sure what's going on right now with little baby Aiden. That's something we really need to check into and go and do another interview with Marco and find out how he's doing there. But yeah, it's ridiculous that just because somebody wants to try another option other than what we know is damaging, being chemo and radiation, that their baby gets taken away from them without, just without any kind of recourse to the state and the people that are taking these, children away. It's ridiculous.
We are just reporting an observational study. We're not doing any controls, no placebos. We're just reporting what the neurologists and the parents and the caretakers of these kids are experiencing.
Well, as you know, Paul, just like our viewers know, here we have Haley. We have recently, I'm forgetting the other little girl's name that David's done such a good job working with. But babies have been protected in BC even before R versus Smith was handed down. Now that R versus Smith is handed down, parents with the right doctor can easily access extracts from people like Chad and I if we so wish to break the rules and give it to them, which I know that I would gladly do, and take that to the bank, because I'll gladly help children out any day with the holistic aspect that I can. And that leads me into one of our questions
Glad
here.
to take that one to court any day too of the week. So
Yeah, one of our questions from the audience is actually, what is the best way to consume CBD cannabis? Like, what is the best way to get the best ratio? What is maybe the best extractor to use? What is the best way to get the right amount of cannabinoids into your bloodstream, I guess would be the question.
That's a many-sided question there. First off, the ultimate... Let me go back to the three-way split when my first talk, or I'm going to present a poster on it in Italy, but it's about the ratio of THC to CBD. I get annoyed when I see growers in California reporting I have a strain that's 25% THC and 15% CBD or 10% CBD. I'll say, no, you don't. Because the genes that code for the enzymes that produce THC and CBD from cannabigerol are codominant. They're either turned on or they're turned off. So you'll only get high THC, low CBD, like in recreational cannabis around the world. All CBC bud is high THC, low CBD. Less than 1% CBD. If you go to the hemp strains, you get high CBD, low THC. This is where I came into this business, looking at these high CBD strains. It took me a long time to figure it out that that's the only place they are, in those hemp strains, in that type of genetics. If you cross the hemp strains with the high THC strains, 1 in 4 will come out what I call a 50-50, which is equal THC and CBD. Roughly equal, in the ballpark, 15% window of equality. That's what has made a significant change in Haley. We named the strain after Haley's Comet, which is a 50-50 strain. We believe...
Just so our viewers also understand that cannabis is hemp. They're one and the same. It's just the government's tried to lead us to believe that they're different. They're really one and the same. It's just there's medical hemp, and then there's fiber hemp, and the fiber hemp is what Paul's referring to here, and what is actually already industrialized here in Canada. And I believe, does Monsanto have control of the hemp at this point?
There is different regulations for hemp. In Canada, it's illegal to harvest the hemp flower.
So that therefore, if we wanted to harvest a hemp with one of our actual legal cannabis plants, technically you're not allowed. There's some more of the government policy for you.
Or what's done right now, when the hemp is harvested, the plant is cut off at the bottom, thrown into the combine, the seed and the flower are shaken off, the stem is put in a different bin, and the flower is chucked back in the field by law. You can do 10 years if you're caught collecting the flower.
Hear that, everybody? 10 years if you get caught with, and again, I think that's because Monsanto owns those genetics, and we do not want this for Canada. That's why Allard means so much, and we're going to talk about both cases, R versus Smith and Allard. But I got other questions here. I can't ignore the audience. The audience next question here. Now, this one's complex. I like this question for whoever the audience member is. But will cannabis help with recovery after like tumor surgery or brain? Now, I'm assuming that it's tied into inflammation and pain, but what's your take on that, and what cannabinoid profiles would you suggest best for that situation?
I believe that's their job, is to balance out human physiology, particularly the CNS, the central nervous system. If there's brain damage or brain tumors or anything, that's the obvious indicated method, if I answered your question.
Okay, so then it would help in the case of recovery after a tumor surgery, because this is likely a cancer patient that had a tumor removed and is looking for recovery. Hey, is this okay for recovery? And also, like, well, there's already evidence.
Probably the best thing you could do for recovery.
Right.
But use it orally, a standardized dose. For inflammatory, which virtually all illnesses of inflammatory component, you want to use cannabidiol, high cannabidiol hemp strain. Thank you for bringing up the point about it all being one species. I've never met a hemp or a cannabis plant that wouldn't mate with another. They're tremendously promiscuous. And hemp, I mean, will mate with ruderalis, with sativa indica. They'll all interbreed, so they're, in my mind, all one species by that old definition. But regardless if you're after CBD, and this is what I'm encouraging BC growers to do, if you're saying you're growing medical cannabis, then you should be growing some high cannabidiol strains. Like I say, it holds a greater medical future than THC.
So what about just going and saying, hey, BC growers and Canadian growers, go get ruderalis and cross it with your favorite regular strain, and you will bump up your CBD levels at least better than taking the chance with hemp that could be genetically modified and traceable, you know. I'm looking at how to keep the hemp genetics out of our field. That's all I'm trying to do.
No. See, I don't really care whether Monsanto. I haven't even thought about that, to tell you the truth. I am encouraging, get some hemp seed, viable hemp seed, grow it indoors, grow it under your normal lighting regime. Harvest those clean flowers, because the hemp that's grown outdoors has wind blowing on it, and you can't get rid of the dust that sticks to the trichomes. You're not growing medical grade cannabis outdoors.
Okay, my co-host has a lot to say when it comes to medical or cannabis and Monsanto and his concerns about that. And before we take that next question on juicing, I have got that and I will take it. It's just we want to turn this over to Chad now about Monsanto, because him and I have talked about this for over a year and in our fear of them moving into the LPs.
You may be enlightening me significantly, because I haven't gone there on this, but I will tell you a little secret about French seed.
These are all plants that are created for all of our use, and when somebody comes along and starts patenting them and saying that only them and their people can use them, well, a lot of us start losing our privileges, our rights, our God-given rights here on Earth to use the plants that were here for us. And when they start contaminating certain plants with certain genes, you might not have a very healthy medicine down the road. I mean, we've seen it happen with all kinds of different vegetables that, used to be healthy vegetables and now are causing all kinds of different cancers, stomach issues, neurological issues, and all because they've decided to genetically modify it for their own purposes to patent it. So what do you think about the future of cannabis being the fact that, there is these people out there that want to patent it and own the whole thing? I mean, I see this new system that they've put in through the LPs would have been a really good opportunity for them to slip their genetically modified stuff right in there without anybody being able to do or say anything about it, had they have pulled the gardens from everybody in Canada.
What if I offered you some wild hemp genetics from Macedonia?
I would. Let's try them out. I mean, I'm into anything that's not genetically modified.
Okay,
I mean, if you've got original hemp seeds, let's try them out. Yeah, I'm all over it.
I have a partner who's a Saskatchewan hemp farmer, and he has never mentioned genetically modified seed. He buys it from Russia.
Nice.
And I believe that he deals with a farmer that supplies most of the seed in Canada. I've met personally who's never mentioned genetic modification either. I will bring it up next time I'm in conversation with both of them, but really to myself it's not been a concern until now.
And also, something that might concern you too is that something that I've heard you mention is that, all cannabis strains can breed together. Well, in the future, they might be able to change that with the Terminator seeds. I don't know if you're aware of the Terminator genetic that is in a lot of different vegetables and things that they've created, where basically you can't collect your seed. Your seed that you collect from your plant the next year will not be able to be viable. It won't work. It'll be sterile. Have you heard of that?
Most of these farmers are growing for seed. But well, anyway, I thank you for bringing that up. I'll be more aware of it and take note. I mean, it is significant.
Yeah, I mean, there's things that people are calling, green.
Lots of seed, lots of viable seed. I've got lots of viable. If we just hang on to them.
Protect your genetics.
That's always scared me. I mean, I would never genetically modify the plant. It just doesn't. I don't do that.
No, yeah, me neither. Absolutely. I could tell that you're the type of guy that wouldn't be into really patenting and owning the plant. You really just want to give it to everybody else out there. I could tell by your attitude, your personality.
I'm of the kind.
Okay, we got like several questions from the audience that we have to kind of field here. And these are some really good questions. Now, they may be rhetorical, but with juicing raw cannabis help with arthritis, the first thing I'll just say on juicing raw cannabis is if you're talking about the flower and juicing it fresh off the plant and it's the full cannabinoid profile, I think it's in that respect that we're talking about juicing, because there's those that don't want to get high per se, but they still want the full cannabinoid spectrum. So for you, would you say that would be that would help with arthritis for maybe an elderly person or somebody with an injury?
Okay, there's a little story about juicing. We did work in the lab with the juicer where we put in the raw material. The juice came out, the spout on the side, and the pulp came out the back. There's no cannabinoids in the juice. We analyze both. We analyze the pulp. The cannabinoids are in the pulp. They don't like water. They'll do anything they can to get away from that matrix. They jump back into the plant tissue. Not to say that juice is not valuable. It's chock full of minerals, vitamins, phenolics, flavonoids, anti-cancer compounds are in the juice.
So still endocannabinoids present?
Well, there's no cannabinoids, significant cannabinoids present. What I would do is take that pulp and heat it up to activate decarboxylate the THC and eat it, mix it into a yogurt.
Right.
To get the full cannabinoid benefit from the plant, you would have to use the pulp.
Okay, so once again, can you repeat what would be the best thing to combine that with to be able to take it that way? That's huge.
Combine what?
Sorry.
Can I just jump in for a sec?
Yeah.
I would say the better way to do that then, I mean, would just be a smoothie. Don't juice it. Keep the pulp in there. Mix it in with all the rest of your stuff, and mix it in with other fruits or whatever, and just grind it all up and drink it. What do you say?
Fruits aren't, as a rule, full of fat. If I'm going to take an oral dose of cannabis, I'll wash it down with a Wendy's vanilla milkshake.
Ooh.
It's full of fat, and you get good absorption with fat. I'm kind of joking. I'll often mix it with the yogurt, fatty yogurt because. Absolutely.
What about a lot of people say mango increases the feeling of cannabis?
It's an enzyme inhibitor, mango, as is grapefruit juice. It inhibits what's called the cytochrome P450 enzyme, which metabolizes THC. Incidentally, pure cannabidiol blocks that same enzyme in a potent fashion. Now, this is work that came out of California a number of years ago, done on pure cannabidiol, put into the subfamilies of enzymes that metabolize 90% of our pharmaceutical drugs. As it turned out, pure cannabidiol was a potent blocker of two of those subfamilies of enzymes. That means, for example, if you're taking Dilantin for your epileptic seizures, that Dilantin must be maintained in a window of dosage. If you have precondition your liver with pure cannabidiol, that dosage could go out of range, potentially leading to overdose.
And just so our viewers understand, Dilantin is an anti-seizure medication. So continue, please, Dr.
Yeah, and it's really, this is a red flag around CBD. Now, in practice, we've worked with with quite a few epileptic children over the years and other people with cancer and so on, using cannabidiol, high cannabidiol extracts from the hemp plant. We've seen no severe cross. High THC preps doesn't seem to cross-react.
On that note, high THC effects. One of the questions from the audience, I have a few here, so I will get to them, guys. Sorry, but Dr. Hornby's in no hurry, and I don't think Chad and I are either here. But most medical benefit of THC. Now, first, I'm going to say my little piece on this. We have to understand that CBD, like Dr. Hornby's already mentioned, bypasses CB1 and addictive, where CBD is not, simply because it doesn't go through the endogenous system in the same way. Now, can you explain for us, Doctor, in your words?
Like I say, CBD crosses over a number of receptor systems, not only serotonin, but the capsaicin system, dopamine, maybe even in catecholamine. I'm not sure about that, but it has a crossover to a number of other receptors, which accounts for a lot of its activity. Another thing, it's a powerful anti-inflammatory. Like I said earlier, inflammation is at the basis of all physiological illness. Even cancer has an inflammatory component. You take away the inflammation, you take the disease toward a cure.
So they want to know for THC, what is the most medical benefit that they can get out of THC? You know, because there's people out there that simply enjoy the holistic plant, and they know that no matter what, the highest concentration of cannabinoid is THC. At the end of the day, if you're going to use it that way. So that's their kind of question: is what's the most medical benefit, I guess, of using THC, including the other cannabinoids in the spectrum of it?
Probably pain relief.
THC for antiemetic. Sorry, Chad, go ahead.
Paul, what would you say is the biggest contributor to fighting cancer? Would it be THC, or would it be?
I think the two work together. You want to have both. That's been shown that they synergize. They even synergize with opiates. You know, so they work with brothers and sisters. Once again, this is what I've been about for years. That's how our medicine, natural medicine, works. It's not a single silver magic bullet, a synthetic molecule. It's a mixture of biological compounds that are made by plant enzymes. They belong in biological systems. Synthetics don't. But synthetics are patentable, and you can own them.
Exactly.
Here's a huge question now. Right on to our viewers. Keep hitting us with the questions, because these are good. Now, I like this because you and I were speaking about this before we went on air. Now, medical benefits of terpenes, and how do they interact with cannabinoids? So now, terpenes, can you maybe just explain to people the difference between, I guess, a terpene and a phytocannabinoid, and why there's so many terpenes, and what your take is in present-day research on terpenes in relation to their working with other cannabinoids, is the question.
I often remind in lectures, when I come to the aromatics or the terpenes or the essential oils of cannabis, all meaning the same thing, that they are receptor active. There's a whole medical science out there called aromatherapy that's not had the use of these compounds. They've been banned as long as the plant. Some are receptor active. A lot act like a general anesthetic on a cell membrane. They'll kind of anesthetize the membrane. I believe that it's the aromatics that bring about euphoria of cannabis, the cannabis experience that we all know and love. It's not THC.
What about antidepressant or antiemetic? Nothing from THC alone. Just as let's say they isolated THC and just said take all the other cannabinoids away. With THC alone, stop antiemetic. Aside from pain, as you mentioned, antiemetic, inflammation, joint. Let's just start with those two.
It would have some effect, but it wouldn't have as good an effect. It's a good question.
No, same with now. Let's just sit. Let me play devil's advocate here. Now let's just isolate CBD by itself and take out THC. Would it work?
Not as well.
Not as well.
It won't be as predictable. You see, when working with these epileptic children, where we get most of the complications, if there's more pharma meds, that's where it's less predictable. Like Haley, we flatlined her daily seizures, but she would have a cluster of seizures during her monthly period. We couldn't get rid of those until just this month when she's gone past her period with no seizures. That's what playing.
We had Cheryl on the show recently, actually talking about Haley's Foundation, and it's always been an interesting story for me. Kids in cannabis, it doesn't. And R versus Smith. Now let's start getting into these court cases, which really are the nuts and bolts of future policy in Canada. You want to talk about policy reform? R versus Smith, someone got charged and changed the policy, and now edibles or extracts are a constitutional right for medical patients in Canada. However, not regulated by the federal government. Now, what we also have going on simultaneously, sorry, I got chatter going on in my ear at the same time. Shoot, I just lost that there. Sorry, Dr. Hornby there. I lost that totally. Okay, let's just go ahead and jump forward here. The court cases. R versus Smith. R versus Smith and Allard both. We're going to start with R versus Smith because in this case it was charged, Owen was charged at the lower courts of BC. It was fought all the way up, first ever case to hit the medical or to the Supreme Court of Canada, and it was a test case for Section 7 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and Section 1. So now with the win, unanimous by the government that we have a right to liberty, we shouldn't face persecution, and the reasonable limits are arbitrary. What's your take from there on how this opens up for Canada in relation to extracts?
I had always seen the fact that the LPs, as they're called, were only allowed to sell smokable bud as pharma's way of telling us never to take cannabis seriously as a medicine. If you go across the border into Washington State and meet the owners of the recreational versus the medical dispensaries, the medical dispensary owners are saying that the thing is to phase us out and make us all recreational. There's a reason for that, because they don't want you to ever realize the full capacity of the natural medicine. They'll lose their analgesic market, their antidepressant market, anti-inflammatory market. This is the exciting power of the cannabis plant. It has the power to revolutionize medicine. For the first time, in Raphael Mershulam's lab in Israel, they're really at the forefront of cannabis research in the world. Their concept, well, I shouldn't speak for them that way, but they have shown that how the endocannabinoid system in balance is what we need as humans. It's the ultimate regulator of regulators. It regulates all of our internal systems.
Well, mother's breast milk. My mother's breast milk has it, and the fact that the endogenous system exists and it's been discovered. And for Rona Ambrose to still say there's no medical value. Now we're going to jump into this a little bit after, but we're going to finish getting through the court cases first. But
guess what? All those laws were made up before the receptor was discovered.
When was the receptor discovered?
The early 1990s.
Right.
So all the cannabis laws, there was no known medical Like I say, it's one of the biggest medical finds of the last century. Next to DNA and insulin, it is.
But North America and Canada, Harper's second act in office was to cut cannabis research funding. I mean, and Canada still holds, like Rona says, that there's no medical value to marijuana. Now, for people like you and I have been working together for a decade at this stuff, you know, it's very frustrating that we know that there's so much anecdotal evidence and historical evidence for them to suggest it's not medical. Chad, what's your take on this whole, you know, government, you know, set up a monopoly under medical and then say, but there's no medical value. So really you're setting up for legalization and for posturing to monopolize Canada. Chad?
Yeah, I mean, it was set up from the start to take it away from the people. Again, like I said, you know, it was growing. The movement was growing. People were starting to grow their own, realizing they didn't need government in their lives. They didn't need bureaucracies in their lives to grow a medicine that made them feel good. And so, just like Dr. Hornby's saying, it's you know, it's begging them for the answer, and we all know what the answers are. They're all around us, you know. The answers are here, and we don't have to go just, you know, knocking on bureaucrats' doors like big pharma to know what's best for us, you know. I mean, it's just again, you know, these things are just Health Canada itself. I mean, the FDA, all these things are just bureaucracies to create monopolies to limit our freedom, as far as I'm concerned.
So R versus Smith, what's your take that the Health Minister of Canada, after all we know, after all we've done for awareness, you put yourself out on the line, like you said, you've been nervous. I know I've been raided by the police. I've had my plants cut down. What's your take that Rona Ambrose, after the Supreme Court of Canada unanimously said patients have a right to liberty and have a right to extracts? And then she comes out and says, I'm outraged. After putting us patients through Allard and R versus Smith, what's your take on that, Paul?
Of course, that's what a fascist is going to say. You know, a fascist is going to be outraged, and they're not going to have much of an argument to stand on as to why they're so outraged and what they're going to do, because they're really standing on a mountain of lies. You know, and all we're doing is we're really just seeing it crumble right now. I don't think that these guys, any of these people, thought that we were going to get as far as we got with Allard and with the Smith case and with really just bringing awareness to the people. I mean, they're going to keep trying to you know, put all kinds of regulations and stipulations on people. They're going to keep saying that, oh, it's, you know, this guy over here is the criminal. No, this guy's the good guy. Well, we all are. This conditioning is wearing off. We're all waking up, folks. So, you know, we're all realizing that our neighbors are not our enemies. Okay, these guys that have these big boxes, they're not necessarily the heroes either. So, you know, I mean, I think it's just a progressive awakening that people are going through right now. But it's time to take our freedom back. You know, I really see this as an opportunity to just kind of spark that in people. You know, us taking this opportunity with cannabis and taking our freedom back with it is a great thing to spark freedom with all different aspects of life that, you know, we really should be taking back from these bureaucracies.
So Paul, honestly, but going back to the health, chiefs, the police chiefs that all stood up on stage and said, let's bring in the marijuana for medical purposes regulations. Again, marijuana for medical purposes when there's no medical value in Canada. And say, I'm outraged to 9 Superior Court judges. I made an open letter on the internet and I called for her resignation. City Hall councillors also addressed her failure and capacity as health minister, as well as the government's failure to continue to not provide reasonable access since R versus Parker in 2001. So what is your take on the health minister's outrage?
When I first heard that, I turned to a friend and I said, now we know who she works for. I mean, who's pulling her strings. I mean, I just accept it as a given. Pharma makes $500 billion a year profit. They own the medical schools, the colleges, the universities, hospitals. They own it all. And they own Health Canada. They tell them what to do. You can go on the market, what can't. I'm lining myself up for
You know us. We're always don't. This is CNC, so we open it up large. I mean, we leak stuff, we do stuff, and we go on record. And you've been well known, as I have, for spouting our mouths off, but backing up the truth. That is very capable. They're private mining, stock holding companies that are on the stock market, and they're taking over our country. It's a monopoly.
There's more deaths to pharmaceutical painkillers than there are to all illegal drugs combined.
I agree. Even, okay, let's talk about a lot of, just to verify this, we have Dr. Paul Hornby on the show. Is there any addiction or death rate or toxicity rate higher than caffeine in relation to cannabis?
I believe if it was toxic, myself, my whole family, including the dog, would be dead. What I really like about it is it's very, very difficult to hurt anybody with it, to kill them, but you can certainly scare them. You can scare the bejesus out of somebody with an overdose of THC. But you're not going to kill them. You're not going to harm them.
Well, by overdose, what would happen, Doc?
You get muddled, you get the fear, paranoia, I gotta get out of here, I'm gonna die. You'll know you're gonna die, but you don't. You wake up 3 hours later, often feel refreshed. But an overdose on THC can be a tremendously frightening experience. One of the reasons I've been about standardized oral dosing of cannabis for many years, you know how much you take. You work out a regimen, and you don't eat a brownie and there's no turning back, and you go through the pinhole, as I call it. And if you overdose somebody in chronic pain trying to take cannabis for pain relief for the first time, they're not going to go back to it. They're going to miss a lot of pain relief if indeed you started them small and worked up. I always say that if you have a standardized dosage, you start at 10 milligrams and work up. Double up daily until you get the effect
What you take here, then the MMPR, they come in, they say, we're going to mail order it to you, and we're going to describe it on a screen, taking away guys like you and me who can explain front line and let them see the product and explain the things that they can explain on our website, but it's kind of like reading your prescription, the information that comes with your prescription. How many patients actually read it? They just listen to their doctor. And in relation to cannabis, it's sort of the same thing. So what's your kind of take on just that aspect?
I think the medical doctors need a lot of education. They don't have it in med school. They don't have any idea what it's about. I've met many over the years. All have been curious, and they say we need more research. I want to give them that research. I want to run the trials that they will believe, but there's been no funding. There's been nothing. As a research scientist, I've worked off grants for years, and there's been no grants for it. I've put out my own money to do the research. And it's not cheap often. So, what I believe the dispensaries here need is people who are qualified and know what they're talking about in terms of administering cannabis medicine. The questions I hear most is, one, how do I access it, and two, how much do I take and when, sort of thing. What strain or what kind of preparation. Interestingly, that in Europe I spent time with people all using cannabis therapeutically, but most treating cancer, particularly lower quarter cancer, are using suppositories. Not socially done or acceptable here for some reason, but showing to be quite effective for things like prostate, colon, even
Crohn's as well. No,
sure. Yeah. You get it close to the active site. We seem to get better effects for cancer with suppositories.
Like rectal cancer or something like that. I guess it's a best delivery system is what you're saying. Like if you want to get the highest cannabinoids in your system, the best delivery system, if you're truly medical, you truly want to fight cancer and get your cannabinoid levels up, is to take your oils, but to also use suppositories. And apparently, I've heard from other people who have used them, they're actually great for sleep. And I guess it's a delivery mechanism.
Apparently, reported time and time again is people don't get the high. They don't get as high from the suppository. If you indeed eat a suppository, you could get quite high, but they don't from up the bum. So it's a good administrative route. You miss first pass through the liver, so it's not metabolized into delta 11, a more potent cannabinoid, so you don't get as high. So it's good for therapeutic use.
Chad, next question.
Sorry, you kind of caught me off guard there.
That's okay. I got one here from the audience I can field. No biggie. The audience, here's another one. They have asked, can cannabis help with CMT, a muscular disease? I'm assuming spasm, inflammation. What would you suggest for dosing? And which cannabinoids in particular would you want to get in higher concentration?
For spasm, spasming, CBD seems to be a little more effective than THC. Once again, they work best in combination. Genetically, we have hemp that'll go to 10% cannabidiol and 0.5%, 0.3% THC. That little bit of THC is really important to the medicine, I believe. It's that little bit of cofactorness, one of the sisters in the mix, that's important. I'll make a little point about hemp genetics, which is our source of CBD, is that it's set at 0.2% THC, but the French produce most of the seed in Europe. They have a seed that was 0.2% THC, so they said, we will sell you that seed, and that's where we're going to set the regulations, right? So it's all just a monopoly to control the seed.
Let's break it wide open then here. Chad's going to want this. The audience is going to want this. The reality is there's a monopoly. So let's talk about the international monopoly, the pharmacology. You know, when you look at the GW Pharmaceuticals, now all of a sudden there's this big push to get cannabis sativa back into the books. Why? So the doctors can prescribe and the provincial formularies can pay under the LP supply. That's my own prediction, but shoot.
Again, having the doctors as these gatekeepers to people's health, the priesthood, the old priesthood, if you will, to your health. I understand that doctors are useful and they have a lot of knowledge, but it's my health in the end. If I want to go and get some opinions from a doctor, it's up to me in the end what I want to do for my health. It really is the bottom line. These doctors that are writing these things that all of a sudden it's like, oh, God just came down from above and said, well, now you're okay to have cannabis. Well, no, we always were. We were always able to have cannabis. The doctor didn't change anything. If we all have to go through doctors to get our cannabis, we're all going to be much more limited. Look at how limited we are right now. There's so many doctors being threatened that they're going to lose their license. They give them these licenses and then they can easily take them away when they say, when they're not going along with what they want them to do. It's a monopoly right down to the very last drop.
And I believe everybody should grow 5 plants and flower them. In Austria, they're allowed to grow 5, but they're not allowed to flower them.
That puts us right to Allard. Now, Allard, if we win, now we've proven no fire, no mold, no organized crime in relation to personal home growing, which means my medical right to autonomy, Chad's medical right to autonomy is not infringed because we're not hurting ourselves or the general public. As a government, and Rona and friends tried to demonstrate, they failed horribly in the courtroom. It's like the judge said, it's one thing to assert that there's inherent harm. It's another thing to demonstrate it in the court of law. That's why I love the courtroom where the stats and the facts matter. And everybody needs to remember the Constitution holds for everybody here in Canada. So going back to what Dr. Hornby's talking about here, the case precedent setting is in Allard because it's a constitutional section 7, section 1 case for medical patients. if we win, and then they legalize, Section 15 of the Charter kicks in. We're all equal before and under their Constitution. It's very hard for them to legalize and say medical patients can grow, but you can't. So yes, I do believe when we legalize, there will be 4 to 6 plants or whatever it is, because Oregon is 4 plants per adult and 4 plants per dwelling. In Colorado, it's 6 plants per adult and 12 plants per dwelling. So they're test firing all kinds of models. In Washington State, it's just a disaster. So that's legalization test models. Chad?
I think it's a plant. I think grow as many as you want.
It will
That's
give
how I look at
anybody
it.
the right to restrict it.
Exactly. It shouldn't be governed like a gun. Chad and I have been across the country. Our viewers know this.
I see no dangers other than the restrictions. The dangers are the people aren't able to get their cannabinoids into themselves. The dangers are really coming from the government. They're coming from the bureaucracies again. The dangers are the fact that they're even in the future when they might say, oh, you're allowed to have it, but now 5 plants. That's dangerous. Why? Because it's limiting. And why do we need to have anything limit us on our health here in this world? This is the earth that God created for us, all the plants that he created for us to use. Who are these people coming in between?
The government trying to
Me,
protect
the
us
nature,
from ourselves.
the nature that's around me that I'm here to use to make myself healthy.
Yeah, as Dr. Hornby just said, it's the government out to protect themselves, and it's just like he said, who's behind the government? And Paul and I have known this for years. It's Big Pharma. They put all kinds of money into these parties, and that's who's there to stand us down, because they stand the most to lose on their antiemetics, their oxycodone, their anti-inflammatories. They got a pill for everything, so they used to have me on them. I replaced them all with cannabis.
And the other thing too is that if they say it's dangerous, whether it's for your safety, well, I can walk into any grocery store and on the bottom shelf, the very bottom shelf, they got bleach. And if this was to limit, if this is all about safety, shouldn't there be some sort of a locked case around that bottom shelf with that bleach on it, in case your 5-year-old decides to walk up there, open the cap, and just take a drink? Is this really about safety? I don't think so.
Yeah, and it's funny because I had a lady at the courthouse the other day, and I wish I had the footage here. We couldn't cue it up for Jamie Shaw, but I talked with Jamie Shaw afterwards, and it was very interesting because on the way down, this elderly lady came out to me, and at first she was a little harsh, and I just talked nicely to her and explained the position, but she was talking about her concern about kids getting edibles. And I said, well, ma'am, honestly, there's alcohol in the house, there's drugs in the cabinet, and it's up to the parents whether they want to lock it up or allow their children to have access to it. And again, this comes down to responsible parenting and awareness and education, and certainly not the silliness of saying, oh my God, cannabis is going to do something. Once again, as the doctor has demonstrated and I've demonstrated, there is no lethal death dose. That's important to understand. You can't die from cannabis. You can have a bad trip, you can potentially get sick and throw up, but you won't die. You could get food poisoning.
Or drinking too much water than an overdose of cannabis.
Sorry?
You could more easily die from eating too many potatoes or drinking too much water. So should we have regulations around potatoes and water that we can't use so much, or that's just the facts. You can drink too much water and actually die.
Yep. Now, tweed and Bedrocan. Now, here's something I want to talk about because we're kind of breaking on this, and I want to talk about this. I've been exposing the LP monopoly and talking about this for a long time, and I've talked about how if they fail, then it'll be better for Canada because they'll have to introduce policy that's more free and fair. And if we legalize, it drops down to the provinces. But with Bedrocan needing to merge with Tweed, for myself and from people I've talked to, it's a good sign. It issues kind of a red flag that Bedrocan was financially in trouble. Tweed offered to help, and that's a good sign that these other LPs are likely going to be struggling as well. And I hate to say that, but you know what? There's only 23 of you guys, and I'm not down with the monopoly, not on me as a medical patient, not on the people I represent, and sure as hell not for the country of Canada, nor the future of my kid, So this is about policy reform and policy change through the courts, through the people, and hopefully through the politics. But I'm just not one to believe in politics. That's my little rant. But Paul, monopoly in Canada. I mean, again, there's 23 companies. Now, it's good that we're seeing this research, but guys like you and me are still criminals if we choose to go over a certain mark with cannabis. What's your kind of take on this particular scheme that's set up?
I just see it as corporate. I call it corporate cannabis. I've always seen it as a people's plant, not a politician's plant. They don't seem to know what to do with it. The people do. Like I say, everyone should grow 5 plants. They should make their own medicine. And you and I can write the books on how to do that. Educate people on how to do that. God knows we've been doing it long enough, right? But I just find, I was telling, my son was asking me about this legislation the other day, and I said it just reminds me of watching rats in a cage in an overcrowded state, and they're all fighting over space and food and trying to fuck each other. I just want it all to end, all this shit show that's going on.
Chad and I have been reporting it's a war in this country. I've been saying this. It's a war. I hate to use heavy language, but look around you. It's a war over supply and distribution. It started with us and going after our gardens, which is why we seek the restraining order, got an injunction, which is a restraining order, $70,000, but we did it, put the government on trial, and reestablish, in my own opinion, the medical right to autonomy for patients in this country, and hence for everybody under the constitutional right for liberty. And again, this is what's fundamental about how we're changing policy in Canada. It's not the Liberals. Justin never talked about changing Bill C-10. If he's going to legalize, you got to remember his chief financial officer is the founder of Tweed, the very person we're talking about. So when we look at this corporate setup, as much as I would like to say, hey, it's great for medical patients, I don't say, hey, it's great for a free and fair market for guys like you and me and anybody else that wants to help medical patients but can now face trademark infringement and God knows what else from these LPs who have a monopoly over the situation. The poor 1,200 applicants that applied to help people like us, didn't have as much money, are getting screwed.
There's thousands of people that applied, that they let apply, where they knew damn well that there was only about, what was it, 51 that were ever projected to give out? 51 licenses or something like that, Jay?
Yeah, in the first 2 years, you're 100% correct.
Yeah, so I mean, they're just dragging people along. They're trying to get people to, to have to jump through all these hoops. You have to have the building, you have to set the building up, you have to have all these things in place so that you can go through these different safety standards and different hoops that you jump through to get different standards of licensing, whatever the case might be. I don't know the term I'm looking for, but they keep making people jump through these different hoops, which is very costly, and these people have to hang on to these large buildings and keep everything operating and kind of doing these little tests that they come in and check out. I don't know exactly how it all's going down for them, but I mean, they're just dragging these people through the mud and making them pay more and more and more money, and they're not planning on ever giving them any of these licenses, most of them anyway. And as you said again, with Bedrocan getting bought up by Tweed, we're now seeing an inner circle of the inner circle. So now we're seeing people that thought they were on the inside, even were given a license, and now are just getting gobbled up by the even bigger people on the inner circle, which are probably just banker backed, and have endless money because they print it out of fiat.
So yeah, there's definitely corruption. Now, Paul, I know back in the day, are you still now in fear? If you continue to do your peer-reviewed journals and continue to teach about cannabinoids, do you still fear that you're going to face the continued persecution, similar to what your friend Rick Simpson had gone through? We all know Rick Simpson, and we all know his story. It's quite phenomenal that he had to run from helping people with cancer. That's where Run From the Cure, look that up, Google that. It tells a big story, but you and Rick did some work together, educating. Where do you see all this going now? For yourself.
God bless Rick for spreading the word. He did a tremendous job of that. Personally, I don't carry signs or do that kind of. I'm not that vocal, I guess.
It's such a tough question. I'm not trying to put you on the hook here.
A massive story. It's so big, and I believe that lately I've been talking about full utility of the cannabis plant, using that renewable resource for all of the things it's good for. They make brake shoes out of it in Germany. You can make petroleum out of it, make clothing out of it, make food out of it, make medicine out of it. If fully utilized, we would have an industrial revolution on our hands. Everything would change. Everything.
Well, is that not what we're seeing with 23, $25 million companies, private stock holding companies controlling supply and distribution while they sell BC Bud overseas, to the Netherlands and over to, different places. They have that ability now to cross-border it. All the stuff that treaties, starting with Parker, we bypassed the treaties and proving we could do it through the Constitution. Somehow they sanctioned this program, and I've had John Conroy sitting right in that chair and asked him, do you think the MMPR was set up for medical? Really, it's called the Marijuana for Medical Purposes regulations, or is it really these big companies set up before we legalize so that they can control the distribution, just like the big, like we got to think, how many liquor companies, how many tobacco companies are there in Canada? I mean, honestly, and I fear the same thing they're trying to take control of cannabis, which I don't believe should be governed like a gun. It shouldn't be governed like alcohol or tobacco, because again, the reasons we've discussed here on this show, the endogenous system that's unexplored, their own lack of knowledge around cannabinoids, their lack of exploration, in part because of Harper's own pulling of the funding. But there's a lot more that needs to be done before they can try and say to people like you and me, we're going to take the holistic use that you speak of, and I agree, away from us, or attempted to, for us medical patients, and say, you can only buy from us. And as you know, they gamma process some of their product. So that was a huge issue with patients as well. So this is some of the posturing that we see going on with the government, other than here in the city with the recent regulations. Where do you see the future going here for medical patients?
These are big questions.
They are. If we have any questions from the audience, please send them in, because I'm giving him loaded questions here, and he needs some lighter ones.
It's starting to scare me a little bit.
It's scaring me too much with it.
These corporate monsters. I'm not a corporate guy. I'm a cottage industry guy. If I'm any sort of business at all, I'm a scientist. I don't really do business. But they will try to contain it. They will try to bottle it up. They will monopolize it. This is not happening in Europe so much. Although the pharma influence is big there, they're using cannabidiol a lot as a medicine in Europe. They're allowed to grow it, they're allowed to harvest it, they're allowed to process it. They can put it in a bottle, they can put a label on it, and they can sell it without a license throughout Europe. You have to be careful on how it's labeled. There's can be less than 0.2% THC in it. But they're allowed to sell medicinal cannabis products in Europe. It's only our scheduling of CBD that's not allowing us to utilize that medicine now. That will hold us back 10 years in the medical research around cannabidiol. As you can see, that the way I'm answering this question, I'm a researcher and I don't really get involved in the politics and so on. But I believe that they will control it as much as possible, but that would just create another black market, an underground market. The more they control it, the more underground it will go.
And that's my fear. Now, if they force us underground, now you and I both know BC. Now, let's be honest. If they were to crush the BC economy, and Chad can field this next part because this is right down his alley. If they crush the BC economy, if they crush the BC growers, and on 420 I said, who doesn't love their neighborhood grower? Because that's where they go to get their best strain, different strains for different pains. And that's what this is about and what Chad loves to talk about. Chad, fire away on the farmers market. Down that whole issue of the farmers, the ability to properly convene together, and your whole take on, I know how you feel about the monopoly, but just from the farmer perspective.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've been stuck in quite a monopoly for some years, you know. Uh, Even before the MMPR, I mean, there's been a lot of people that come in and they buy large amounts of cannabis from people, and because those farmers aren't able to actually advertise and get themselves out there because it's being illegal, and they have to just depend on these large buyers that would come into town and buy people's different crops or whatever. I mean, there has been a bit of a monopoly that has already been in place, even though that's more of a free market than what they're implementing. It's even still been a bit of a monopoly. And those people, even though they may have been more fair to people in the past, are not treating people fairly these days. And a lot of them, whether they know it or not, are connected to these LPs that are actually sending a lot of this stuff, overseas. I mean, we've heard of many different people getting, well, not many, but a few different spots getting caught with in transport of cannabis that they were buying from the farmers here, and then trying to sell it back to the patients that they were trying to take the licenses from. They've got their people in place that they've had in place to buy up the market for some time in order to have this whole thing come about. So when the LP system came about, they tried to basically crash the market all overnight. They started offering people dirt for their product, and basically telling people give up your right to grow. This was the rumor that would come down the chain. You'd hear from people that'd say, well, you give up your right to grow, your price will go back up, you'll be able to feed your family again and be able to pay your bills and all that stuff, right? Well, it's a lie. I mean, it's obvious it's a lie. There's not enough cannabis out on the market. There should be a lot more. There's a lot of people that can't access it, and a lot of it is because the farmers aren't able to advertise. They're not able to come out and say, hey, I'm growing this, I'm doing this, and they're not getting a fair shake at even their end product. So they're kind of kept down, and in this big fight that we've been in with Allard and whatnot, a lot of the growers have been afraid to kind of step up and put their foot into the fight, because they're like, well, if we get a free market, am I going to get even a worse price? Well, no, you're not. You're not going to get even a worse price. You got to only look to Colorado, to the free market that happened over there. It was overnight. It was $25 a gram, and it went up to something like $72, or sorry, it was $25 an eighth to something like $72 an eighth overnight. Not that that's the greatest thing for the end user, but the end user is also going to be able to grow their own too if they want to in a free market, and should. We all should be growing our own everything, Sorry, Jay. Yeah, that's the bottom line, man.
It's all good. I mean, this is the thing, is we're all passionate about what's going on. And Paul, I mean, you and I go back again a decade. You've been doing this 30 years. I mean, you were saying this before any of the LPs and doctors and Health Canada even mentioned there was a cannabinoid system or an endogenous system. Now during exploration with Allard, they tried to justify the marijuana for medical purposes regulation in the LP scheme, or the whole system. They tried to justify that, and again, there was just a lot of continued stuff that drives up the emotions. We have to remember the emotions are driven on something that you and I hold dear too, a fundamental right to liberty. In the case of R versus Smith, it came down to the Section 7 right to liberty. In this case of Allard, it's a Section 7 right to liberty. This is what we need to look at, and we're shaping the policy. And when we go in and we want to start educating and doing more stuff, we need to network, educate, but stay alert. Know what's going on around us. All I know is I screamed out to the crowd at 420, and they all said, they all replied when I said, who doesn't love their neighborhood grower? And here in BC, that's a fact, because everybody in their neighborhood kind of has a grower. That's just a reality for BC. And I just don't see, I fear a gas war. Do you think a gas war would break out should this monopoly take control of all the dispensaries, have control of everything? Do you, Dr. Paul Hornby, believe that they would do that, potentially?
A gas war.
A gas war. Like it would start, like here in BC, we know the economy of BC is basically run by growers. It's a reality. They're not medical growers always necessarily, they're underground growers. But there's still an economy. 94 clubs get supplied in this province, in Vancouver, 94 clubs. It takes a pretty big supply to do 94 clubs. So it's just a point that there's a huge underground economy, you know. So I'm just wondering what your take is on all those people that are going to continue to grow, continue to sell, continue to supply patients. They're going to face Bill C-10 mandatory minimums for 6 or more plants. Chad, I'm going to get you to field this next year, Dr. Hornby. Chad, do you want to add to that 6 or more plants? Going to jail, Bill C-10.
Yeah, I mean, it's all garbage. I mean, I don't adhere to, you know, my rights don't come from government. I hope everybody out there, their rights, they don't believe their rights come from government, because if they do, well, it can be written away really quick. I hope you don't think that fact comes from government either, because if it does, then, you know, living in Nazi Germany would be a real trip. You know, it's really just, you know, the truth is that this is a plant that benefits so many people, and there's just really a mountain of lies that surrounds keeping it from us all. You know, the 6 plants is limiting. I find all of it limiting. I think we need to just lift prohibition on this thing and let people get back to health.
Well, your take, Paula, and again, to me, it's just, when I say that price war, I'm worried about patients' access, and then if they have to rely on choosing between $8.50 plus shipping plus tax from an LP dispensary or clinic versus the guy down the street that can sell it to them for $4 or $5 a gram, in the case of a price war between these $25 million private stock-holding companies and the underground of BC, that if jail before didn't scare them, and we built this economy, dude, what's going to, do they really think that the MMPR is going to scare them and a few lawsuits? They're underground. This is a war, and it doesn't need to happen. I fear for the people that get caught in the crossfire. I often say since 2001, the medical patients of Canada have been caught in the crossfire of prohibition. It's a serious issue. To be caught in the crossfire of prohibition for patients, I've been in that. I've had the cops raid my house. I've sued them. I've had them come back and hit me. I've had to take them to human rights with Kurt Tusaw, sued them with John Conroy. This is all before the coalition. You know, this is me just standing my ground that I should just be able to grow this plant because it don't hurt nobody and it helps me. And I have HIV. I'm now 22 years positive, you know, and it saves my life. And to hear that the government in Rona is outraged because I'm allowed to continue to save my life is really conflicting. And I'd like to know your opinion, doctor, because you've done this. You've worked with so many patients like I have. What's your feedback on that?
I am preaching to the converted. Once again, I mean, in my mind, it's the most efficacious herbal medicine we have available to us on the planet, and it's illegal. You give your head a rattle. You know, it doesn't make sense. And not be able to research it like we haven't been able to for many years makes even less sense. I mean, what's wrong? I mean, I on my wall it says Doctor of Philosophy. I spent many hours in ponderance over this insanity, you know, because it really doesn't make any sense at all. It does in terms of monetary gain and greed and things like that, but it doesn't make sense to the human animal and our well-being. You know, I'm about full utility of cannabis. I'm not afraid of it. I've never been afraid of it. Many people still are. You've mentioned education a number of times today. I believe that's our next big push, is just to educate people on and to dispel the fears, right? And what we're doing, my little group that I'm working with, we're educating people on the nutritional as well as the medical value of the plant. I mean, is plant or cannabis a vegetable, or a fruit, or a herb?
No, is that Hedron that's doing that?
Well, I'm working with a group called Canutra Naturals.
Do you have a website for them? Just because we're wrapping up here, so do you have a website for them?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, we're a group of friendlies that have been together a long time in our careers and forming this little group. anyway, oh yeah, the neutral and or the nutritional as well as the medical. That's the whole plant concept, right? And we will be coming out with products that will be legal and quasi-legal in Canada that are to balance the endocannabinoid system. That's their concept, is to activate the receptors to get the precursors to the endocannabinoids flowing and just to get that system activated, which should bring about general well-being. Your body will function better if everything is in balance and properly regulated.
Okay. We'll close. Great glass gathering. Closing remarks.
Can't wait to see everybody there. Just wanted to say thank you very much for coming on the show tonight, Paul. You're an amazing guest. I think.
No, I think we lost him. Okay, well, Paul, I'm going to wrap it up here. Oh, he's back. Hang on. Go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, am I there?
Yeah, you're here. Good.
Okay. Yeah, just to hit on the economic side of things again, really, they had the smart meters put in place. They're watching people a lot more than people might think now. They were kind of ready for this takeover a lot more than people think, Preserve the licenses. They might have put a bit of a hard line in place and might have just gone for every one of those growers. And there's also something called civil forfeitures that, to me, is just theft, where, they can go in and they don't even have to have charges on you. And all of a sudden, they try to start taking your possessions, your home, everything. This was a bank takeover, and people have to recognize who's behind these people like Rona Ambrose and all these guys. And it's the banksters, again. And we can see this message being put down, and it's not a nice message. It's just fear, and it's all lies, and it comes from a place of ignorance. So
I keep saying it's hard to stop the tide coming in.
It is, and it is a big tide that's coming. Well, Chad, my friend, once again, thanks for another great show. Everybody, we will be back here next week.
Sure.
Dr. Paul Hornby, thank you for coming on the show. Honestly, we want to have you back. We want to talk more about your research as it develops. I certainly want to talk more with you off camera about your group and what's going on and some potential studies we could look into, because there's just so much, as you said, education, awareness that we need to do. Once again, thank you for coming on CannabisInCanada.ca. Everybody stay tuned for Thursday nights at 6 p.m. We'll be here live with a new guest each week. And we'll be here where the controversy meets the concrete and the facts are always put forward. We'll see you in the next show.
Cannabis in Canada.